Hi guys, let's do a quick video on percent of change. We're going to be looking at percent of change, and we're going to be looking at two different types of change. We're going to be looking at an increase in the percent of change, and we'll also be looking at the decrease. Okay, the good news is the formula for both of these is exactly the same. It is change over original equals percent over 100. And this second part here should look very familiar to you, okay, because we just used that last week. Okay, so probably more often than not, the way we'll refer to this will be percent increase or decrease. It is still percent of change though, okay? So let's work through a couple of examples here. Here's the first one. Bob, I love talking about some Bob here, got a raise from $8 to $10. And we want to know what is the percent of change. Okay, so the first thing we're going to figure out is this an increase or a decrease? So Bob went from $8 to $10, okay? So because that went up, I know that this is an increase. He increased the amount of money he was making, okay? So that's the first thing I need to just kind of acknowledge here. So when I'm going back up here to my formula, it asks me first for the change. So I need to find the amount of change, and that's a pretty simple thing to do. I'm going to subtract just to find the amount of change. I'm always going to put my bigger number first because I don't want a negative amount here. So he went from $10 to $8, which means the change was $2. Okay. The next thing it asked me for in my formula is the original. So if I go back up here to the top, I see that the original amount that Bob had made was $8. So that's going to go here on the bottom. I don't know the percent. That's what I'm trying to figure out. So I'm going to put a variable X there, and then my 100's always going to go here. All right, this should look very familiar. This looks very similar to what we've been doing with solving proportions. So I'm going to cross multiply here. I have 8 times X gives me 8X. 100 times 2 gives me 200. I now have a one-step equation. I need to get X by itself. I'm going to divide both sides by 8 really quickly, and then from there I know that 200 divided by 8 is going to give me 25%. So that's a pretty darn good raise for Bob. So good job, Bob, getting a 25% raise. Most of the time with raises, we are looking at about a 5% raise usually would be pretty good. So Bob did phenomenal here, getting a 25% raise. All right, here's example 2. Mikey, and if you're not writing these down, you should be. Mikey and Paris, you can pause the video and go back and write down if you haven't yet. They had a competition. I did this once with a friend, had a competition, a pizza eating competition. Yeah, well, they had a competition to eat tacos. So they had a competition to eat 150 tacos. I mean, my competition was to eat 10 pieces of pizza, and I'll spare you the details, but it didn't end well for me. So after 2 rounds of data here, we're going to look at who decreased their time the most. All right, so these were 2 crazy guys here having this taco competition. So let's look at some data here. So we see that Mikey, for the first round, it took him 117 minutes. And for the second round, it took him 91 minutes. Yeah, that's to eat 150 tacos. These are some crazy people, okay? So let's go ahead, and while we're here, we might as well go ahead and figure out what Mikey's percent was. We're seeing that he went from 117 to 91, which means he had a decrease. His time went down, okay? So just in case you're asked that question. All right, so what we need to first figure out is the amount of change. So we're going to figure out 117 minus 91. So the amount of change, that would be 26. So he decreased his time by 26 minutes. I need to find the original time. Most of the time your original is going to be listed first, okay? So his original was 117 minutes. I'm looking for the percent, that's what I do not know, times 100. Okay, again, I have a I have proportions here. So I have 117x equals, and so I need to do 100 times 26, which gives me 2,600. Okay, I need to get my x by itself, so I'm going to divide both sides by 117. Right, so that's going to give me x equals, it tells me 22.2 repeating. I think it's probably fair to go ahead and round that to 22%. So he decreased his time by 22%. All right, so we need to now go back in and we need to find Paris's time. So Paris, on the other hand, first round, Paris took 102 minutes. And then in the second round, Paris took 79 minutes. Okay, so just to remind us, I'm going to go ahead and write the formula down here for us. Change over original equals percent over 100. Okay, so I need to first find my amount of change again. So 102 minus 79. So the amount of change he decreased was by 23 minutes. So I'm going to plug that in for my change. I'm going to look for what the original was. So the original here was 102 minutes. I don't know the percent, so I prefer to put an X there. And then 100 always goes in that spot in the bottom right-hand corner. All right, I'm going to go ahead and do my cross multiplying here. 102 times x gives me 102x. And then 23 times 100 gives me 2,300. Again, I have a one-step equation. I want to get the x by itself. I'm going to divide both sides by 102. Okay, and so then that tells me here that 102 divided by 102 gives me x. And then I'm going to divide 2,300 divided by 102, and this time I get 22.5%. So if we remember, Mikey, his was 22.2%, and we have Paris here at 22.5. So it does appear that Paris decreased his time by just a tiny bit more than Mikey, but that's what we were looking for, is who decreased. So it didn't say by how much, it just said who decreased more, so we would know that Paris had the greater amount of decrease. All right, we'll practice some more of these in class together.